God has always had only one plan of salvation, and the Bible tells us that that is Jesus Christ slain from the foundation of the world. The Old Testament is full of types and shadows concerning this salvation, as well as prophecies. We hear a lot about the prophecies, we don't hear as much about the graphic types and shadows. The Old Testament tabernacle is full of types and shadows concerning Jesus Christ and the church and several other things. I would like to do a study on the Old Testament tabernacle, which will take up several lessons to go into it in depth. But for today, I want to talk about the rent veil. We're told that when Jesus died on the cross, the veil in the temple was rent from top to bottom. This signifies that the way was open for man to go into the Holy of Holies without having to go through any earthly mediator, the one mediator being Jesus Christ. It is very significant that the veil was rent upon his death. Paul's epistle to the Hebrews tells us that the significance of that is that we can now come boldly before the throne of grace. In the Old Testament tabernacle, the Israelites, as they moved through the wilderness, led by Moses, who was led by God and his Shekinah glory, you recall, as a cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. After they had constructed the tabernacle according to God's plan, they carried it with them, and they would carry it in parts and set it up wherever they were. And then there were certain rituals that took place in the tabernacle, among them the animal sacrifices and the blood. The high priest was the only one who could go into the Holy of Holies, and he could only go there once each year, and he took the blood of bulls and goats. Into the Holy of Holies to sprinkle on the mercy seat which sat on the Ark of the Covenant. When Solomon had the first temple built, as related in the Old Testament, the innermost part of the temple was the same structure as the tabernacle. It had the outer court, the holy place, and the Holy of Holies with all of the furnishings, and they're all very significant. In all those years, from then on, there was a temple in Israel, in Jerusalem, which had the Holy of Holies, which had a veil that was still intact, and it had successive high priests from the tribe of Levi to carry out this ritual every year for the sins of Israel. And it was to be for only 1 year. the sins for 1 year, and then it started all over again. It was never finished. Now, when Jesus died on the cross, one of the things that he said was, "It is finished." He meant that the work of God for the salvation of mankind was finished. There would never be any more need for animal sacrifices. There would never be any more need for an earthly high priest or an earthly priesthood, because now every believer could come boldly before the throne of grace, as we're told in the Epistle to the Hebrews. The veil in the temple at the time of Jesus' death was rent from top to bottom, signifying that it was not man that tore it down, it was God. It came from heaven. If you understand this type, you will understand a great deal. Jesus Christ becomes our great high priest. But the Jews, for the most part, did not accept this. They did not recognize Jesus as the Messiah or the fulfillment of the great high priest. But this message has been carried throughout the world and is believed by Christians. It is incumbent upon us to believe these things. We should believe that only Jesus can usher us into the Holy of Holies. He is the one mediator between God and man, the man Christ Jesus. His work has been finished. It is finished. He is now ascended back to heaven, and he is seated on the right hand of the Father. There is no more work to be done for the salvation. When he was raised from the dead, his work was absolutely complete, because now he had defeated Satan and all the powers of hell for the salvation of mankind. I commend to you to read the book of Exodus and all about God's instructions for the tabernacle, and to read the passages that Paul wrote concerning our being the temple, the true temple of God. That veil that was rent in the temple signifies that the veil is rent in the church, and every one of us who should have had that veil rent in us, so that we could have a spiritual birth. This is what it means to have a spiritual birth, to have that veil rent, so that we may go boldly before the throne of grace. You have a good day.